How can you prevent a common cold before you actually get symptoms? Which parameter can you use to track your daily stress and recovery? And what actions can you take in your daily life to enhance your resilience and strengthen your energy? These questions will be answered in today's podcast episode. My name is Dr. Dominik Klug. I'm a medic and a certified holistic health coach. If this is your first time listening, welcome. On this channel, you will find weekly content about health, medicine, and longevity. Today's topic is heart rate variability, an extremely useful tracking parameter for your health. We will dive into the science and the background of the HRV, and you will learn techniques that you can use in your daily life to increase your energy, productivity, and health. What is heart rate variability? Heart rate variability is often described as HRV in short, and it describes the interval, or so to say the variety, between two heartbeats measured in milliseconds. So the best thing you can imagine is a metronome. So for musicians, a metronome is a device that will help them to stay in focus with their music and to have like a regularly beat. And your heartbeat is kind of the same, but the heartbeats are not this regular like a metronome. So the heartbeats and the intervals between the heartbeats, they vary. And that's what the HRV is all about, because the HRV describes this time, this variation between the simple heartbeats. And easily told, the higher the variation, the higher the HRV, and the better for your health. And the question is, why is that? And the HRV gives you kind of indirect message through your nervous system, and it tells you how relaxed your nervous system currently is. Moreover, it also tells you about your recovery and about the tonus of your vagal nerve. What is the vagal nerve? The vagal nerve is the 10th of the cranial nerve, and it's the main nerve of the parasympathicus. And vagus is Latin and stands for wandering, like wandering around. And the reason why the nerve is called like this is because the vagus nerve is traveling from your brain down through your body until your abdomen, and it spreads branches through the various organs, for example, like the heart, the lungs, and also different organs of your gut. So this is why the nervus vagus is called the nervus vagus. And the nervus vagus, or the vagal nerve, is the main regulator concerning your mood, your immune system, and also for the internal organs of your body, which we just talked about. So for example, the lung, the heart, and your gut. And it's very interesting and worth noting that the branches of the vagal nerve are usually more like afferent than efferents. What does this mean? It means that the simple nerves and the single fibers of the nerve are usually going from your organs into the brain, and not as much as from the brain into your organs. So the theory is, or actually it's not a theory, but it's kind of proven, that the information that is coming from your organs are traveling through your brain and giving your brain information on updates of the single organs. And that's what the vagal nerve is all about. And that's what the parasympathicus is all about, because your vagus nerve is the main nerve of your parasympathicus. And the parasympathicus is like associated with things in your body concerning recovery, concerning detoxification, concerning relaxation, and also for your gut to work. So after you've ingested food, it has to be transformed by your gut and also by your gut bacteria, and that's what the parasympathicus is all about. So what does this all have to do with your HRV, or your heart rate variability? As I've told you before, the heart rate variability is associated with many different things. So the higher the HRV, the better. The lower the HRV, the worse it is. So let's give you an example. A currently low HRV or a chronic low HRV is associated with diseases. It is associated with stress. And this stress can concern your mental health as well as your physical health. And the lower the HRV, the more tense is your body. The problem about all this is that the longer your HRV is low, the more you have higher risk for chronic diseases. For example, diabetes, and also a problem that's coming from diabetes, namely a problem with your kidneys. What else? Your liver. Your liver can have damage, and it's called liver cirrhosis, where there is a special kind of tissue going into your liver. And because of this tissue that's going to your liver, the liver gets like tense and the functions of the liver are not as good as before. Heart insufficiency is also a problem, a chronic problem that is associated with a lower HRV. And the heart rate variability, or HRV, is also associated with a kind of predictor for mortality concerning problems with your heart, for cancer, and also sudden cardiac death. On the other hand, a higher HRV is associated with a better recovery, with less stress, and with a higher activity of your parasympathicus. So, what you will want to do as an individual who wants to strengthen your health is to keep your HRV as high as possible. And the good thing is that you can measure the HRV. And when you measure the HRV, you can kind of see your parasympathicus, and you can kind of see the stress load in your body, and you can kind of see the recovery state in which your body currently is. So you can use the HRV very smartly to take it as an indicator and see, okay, how stressed am I currently? How tense is my body currently? And that's the best thing, you can also use the dynamics of the HRV, the up and downs, to recognize if there is, for example, a common flu coming. So this can be really going on your nerves, and you want to prevent like the common cold as much as possible. And what you see when you're tracking your health and also when you're tracking your HRV is when your immune system shuts down, you see, one, a lower HRV, so the HRV is going down. Two, you see an increase in your resting heart rate. And three, you see an increase in your breathing frequency. So you're breathing more often per minute than you usually do. And this triangle with a lower HRV, with a higher resting heart rate, and with a higher frequency of your breathing can indicate there's something wrong with your body and there is disease coming. There's, for example, a common cold coming, and you can recognize this, and then you can modify your lifestyle and you can take certain actions to prevent this common cold. So what you will want to do, for example, if you see something like this, is that you will enhance your sleep. So maybe you will have one more sleep cycle than you usually have. Or maybe you will load up on your zinc or on your vitamin C, for example. You will maybe skip a workout, and instead of this, you will go for a relaxing, restorative walk. All these things you can do to strengthen your body and to support your immune system during these episodes. So what possibilities do you have to measure your HRV? Basically, there are two different kind of measurements. The first one is central, and the second one is a non-central measurement. The central measurement is kind of associated with an electrocardiogram. So what you will usually do when you go to your doctor to have a health check, he will have like electrodes and like wires and stuff, and he will put them on your chest, and then he will look at your heart actions. And this is actually the best way to measure your HRV. The problem about this method is that, of course, it's not really suitable for your daily life, because you can't walk around and work and sleep with all these different wires and with these electrodes on your body. So that's why there's an alternative, and this is the non-central measurement. And in a non-central measurement, you will use something like a strap, for example, or like a smartwatch, or maybe a ring. And these devices can also give you information about your HRV. And the technique they will use is called PPG. PPG is short for photoplethysmography, and this kind of techniques measures your so-called IBIs. And IBI stands for interbeat intervals. And for the measurement for these interbeat intervals, you will use something like an RMSSD formula, which will go like way too deep right now, so you don't have to remember all of that. But what you will have to know is there are certain devices with which you can measure your HRV. And that's a very nice thing, actually. Critics will say, well, if you use this non-central measurement, it will not be as accurate as a central measurement. And they're kind of right, actually. But there's a big but. And the problem with this statement is, when you look at your health, when you look at your HRV as someone who wants to improve your health, to be honest, you're not interested in like small variations, like is there 1 millisecond more or less in your HRV. What you're interested in is trends. So you will look at your HRV and you will see, okay, it's rising, it's falling, yeah, it's like going flat, whatever. And you can use these variations to have a guess about what's going on in your body, and also what your immune system is about to do, and also how big your stress load is, how much recovery you just had through the weekend. And that's what it's all about. So you will have to see the trends. And when you are able to interpret this in these variations, it will help you to strengthen your health, and it will help you to optimize your resilience. And that's what it's all about. So what I've told you before is, the higher the HRV, the better. But there is a little problem with this statement, namely that different people have different HRVs. So what you should not do is, you shouldn't compare yourself with other people and say, okay, how high is your HRV? Mine HRV is like 120 milliseconds. My HRV is 70 milliseconds, whatever. So what this will create is envy and also like frustration. And the reason why this doesn't work is there are some influences on your HRV that you actually can't influence. And these are things like genetics, for example. Some people, they would just have like a higher tonus in the parasympathicus and a higher vagal tone. And because of that, they will have a higher heart rate variability. So I know people who have like 120, 130, and in the best times even 150 milliseconds of HRV. My HRV has never been that high, and that's not because I'm sick, but because I'm just a little bit lower on the genetic side. So my HRV is usually between 70 and 90, and rarely sometimes above 100. So genetics is a big thing, and you can't change that. Then, second thing, your age. We know that the older you get, the lower your HRV tends to be. So as you're going through life and as you're growing older, your HRV will decrease, and that's totally normal. And the third thing, and you can influence that as well, is that men used to have a higher HRV than women on average. Also something that we can't change. There are actually things that you can do to influence your HRV and to give it a higher trend, and we will shortly talk about that in a second. What you will want to do as someone who is interested in your health is you want to measure your HRV, and not only for one night or for 2 days, but ideally for some weeks, maybe even months. The longer you're looking at your HRV and the longer you're measuring, the more information you will have and the better you will understand your body and your HRV. And there are some devices that you can work with, for example, like different smartwatches or maybe the Whoop strap or the Oura Ring. All these devices have a quite accurate measurement of the HRV. So it depends on what you will like to wear, also what your occupation is. Do you have like hygienic standards in your job? And whatever your preference is, you can choose one of these devices and then look at your HRV daily. And as I've told you before, short reminder, it's not about like having the exact measurement on the millisecond, but merely about the trends your HRV will show you. Is there like a threshold you should be above? Is there like a hard line you have to draw in the sand when you're looking at your HRV? Actually, there is one. So as I've told you, HRV is kind of individually, but your HRV should be above 30 milliseconds on average. So the cutoff is not very strictly defined depending on the sources you're looking at. Some state 24 is the cutoff, some say 28, 29 is the cutoff. For me, as a medic and as a health coach, I have seen in my coachings that a good cutoff is 30 milliseconds, and you should absolutely be above the 30 millisecond threshold, because when you're below that, this sets you up for chronic health problems, and you don't want that. So we'll have higher risk for diseases, for chronic diseases, and the aim should be to reach at least 30, but as I've said before, the higher the better. So which influences do you have in your daily life that can lower or increase your HRV? Let's start with the influences that have a negative impact on your HRV. First one is alcohol. That's no surprise. We all know that alcohol is not good for your health. And when you're tracking your HRV, you will see that already one glass of example red wine can have a negative impact on your HRV. And most people don't believe this until they see it themselves. So although they will not feel hungover the next day, or although they won't be like negatively impacted performance-wise, you can see when you measure your HRV, already one glass of alcohol can lower your HRV the next day. Second is smoking. No surprise, we all know that smoking is bad for your health, and it doesn't matter if you're vaping, if you're smoking classical cigarettes, if you're doing shisha, smoking can have a negative impact on your HRV. Then coffee. Coffee is also something that can have a negative impact on your HRV. There is one kind of thing there that we should talk about, and this is genetics again, because some people, they are genetically blessed. And these people, they will have a so-called homozygote allele of a certain enzyme in the liver. And this one is called CYP1A2. And this little enzyme helps you to break down the caffeine. And the people who have like a special allele, namely the A1 allele, they usually tend to be like a very fast metabolizer. So these are the people who can have coffee anytime in the day. They can drink their coffee in the evening, and although they do that, they will have a perfect sleep. They will measure it, they will see there is just no difference. On the other hand, there are people who are kind of slow metabolizers, and these people have the 1F allele. And these people will be kind of caffeine sensitive. So when they drink coffee, they will feel a difference. They can feel how their heart rate increases, and maybe they will get like a little bit of agitation, and they will have to really have a look on their caffeine intake. All right, next thing that can have a negative impact on your HRV is stress. That's what we have already talked about. Not only physical stress on your body, like harsh workouts, but also mental stress, emotional stress, having fights with your partner, with your friends, having stress at work. Doesn't matter. at the end, it will have a negative impact on your HRV. Up next is sleep deficiency. If you have a bad night's sleep, already one night or one night of non-sleep, then you can see your HRV dropping. Then we have inflammation, diseases. We've talked about this as well. Harsh workouts, heat exposition and cold exposition. So for all you guys who like saunas, all you guys who like cold plunges, these things can have a positive effect on your health, but they can also have negative impact on your health, namely on your HRV. So it depends on the kind of person we're talking about. It depends on the kind of impact that we have, no matter if heat or cold. It depends on how long that we do it, and it depends on the time when we actually do this. And the funny thing is that these things like sauna or cold plunges can also have a positive impact on your health. Up next is traveling. And many people will say, wait a second, traveling is actually good for my health. It takes out the stress of my life and I can recharge, whatever. And that's totally fine, and I totally agree with you, but there is a little catch, and the catch is at the beginning of your journey. So usually you will go on a flight, you will catch a train, you will catch a bus, whatever. You will change the environment. The bed is not the same that you're sleeping in usually. And maybe you have a little bit of like jet lag, crossing time zones, whatever. All these things can have a negative impact on your HRV in the beginning. So what you will usually see at the beginning of your holiday is a little drop of your HRV followed by an increase, and that's totally normal. So don't be surprised when you see a change like this. Nutrition, no surprise, sugar, junk food, and also eating late, having a late dinner can have a negative impact on your HRV. Tense muscles, of course, doing too much training, although we have to say, honestly, that's the least people who have these problems. Most of the people, they do too less exercises. But if you do like an overtraining, this can impact your HRV negatively. Blood sugar spikes, that's a topic in itself. Actually, it deserves a whole podcast, to be honest. But if you have like a high blood sugar going up and down like a roller coaster, maybe have an insulin resistance, these things can drop your HRV. Problems with your gut, for example, SIBO. So if you have kind of bacteria that you don't want in certain parts of your gut, if you have leaky gut, all these things can have a negative impact on your immune system and also on your HRV. And last but not least, and that's a very interesting one, is shallow breathing. So if you're breathing shallow, like superficial, you don't take deep breaths, then you stress your body and your HRV will show this effect. And many people will wonder, or maybe have recognized, that if they are taking a deep breath in, so they're doing an inspiration, they will realize that their heart rate increases, versus when they do an exhalation, they will realize that their heart rate goes down. And why is that? There is actually two explanations for that, and science hasn't really confirmed the two and which one, and maybe there are both who have their truth in it. So the first explanation is that if you're doing an inhale, you will decrease your pressure in your chest, and you will increase the pressure in your abdomen. And this will have a certain effect, namely that there is more flow of the blood to your heart. And as a consequence, the heart will have to pump faster to get the blood going. So that's one explanation. The other explanation is that when you're taking a deep breath in, the vagal nerve, which we've talked about before, will be inhibited, and the other part of our central nervous system will take over. And your sympathicus will be activated, which is kind of the fight or flight response in your body, and that's why your heart rate will increase. So this is for the negative impacts. What about the positive impacts you can do for your health to increase your HRV? And we can now simply say, okay, just do the opposite of what we have talked right now, but that would be a little bit too easy. On the most things we could agree on that. So for example, you can take out the stress, you can focus on your sleep, you can do healthy nutrition, all of that, absolutely. So let's look at some key points you can do in your daily life to increase your HRV. Up first is breathing exercises, and we've talked about it. Deep breathing is something that is very, very good for your health and for your HRV. And there is one special technique that I want to emphasize here, and that's coherent breathing. Coherent breathing is a breathing technique where you synchronize your breathing to your heartbeat, and through these exercises, if you do them regularly, you can increase your HRV. Up next is meditation, also something that you won't be surprised about. So if you're doing meditation regularly, you calm your nervous system, you can increase your HRV. Then movement, doing exercise not too much, but just the right dose will help you for your stress management. And the science shows that people who do endurance sport usually have a little bit better HRV than people who do like strength training only. So maybe you want to combine the two of these, or maybe just doing like the endurance training, that would be absolutely possible. Intermittent fasting, if you have a little break between your meals, or even doing like a longer fast, an extended fast, what you will do is you will help your gut to recover and you will increase your HRV. Sauna, cold plunges, also something that you've heard before. And as well as these things can have a negative impact on your HRV, they can also have a positive impact on your HRV. So you really want to find out what kind of person you are. When do you want to do the sauna? When do you want to do the cold plunge? How long do you want to do this? At what time of the day do you want to do this? If you get to know these things, you can have a really positive impact on your health. We've already talked about the gut, and as well as you already know that a sick gut or like a leaky gut or certain bacteria in your gut can decrease your health, the opposite is also true for your HRV if you want to increase it. So if you take care of your gut, if you take care of the bacteria in your gut, if you maybe working with the right probiotics, if you working on to get rid of your leaky gut, these things can have a positive impact on your HRV. Sleep, that's a non-brainer. So make sure to get the right amount of sleep, to have a good recovery, have a good night's rest, and this will definitely benefit your health. Recovery, that's something that people will do differently in their lives. So some people will go maybe for a spa day, they will go for wellness, they will go for a massage. All these things are perfectly fine and they can help you to increase your HRV. The next one is a little bit uncommon, and it's gargling. So if you're doing like gargling, for example, when you're brushing your teeth or you're humming, you're singing, these things will activate your parasympathicus and also your vagal nerve, which will maybe improve your HRV. And the last things are non-brainers as well. Get the right amount of water in, get the right amount of sunlight in, enjoy nature. All these things will maybe improve your HRV. And then you can focus on all the other things. So there's a reason why I've not talked about supplements yet, because supplements are always the tip of the iceberg, and there are some supplements that you can work with and that will maybe help you recover better and maybe also help you enhance your HRV. And certainly there are many devices you can use. You've talked about some of them, which you can track your HRV, for example, like the Whoop strap or another smartwatch or the Oura Ring. Doesn't matter what you will use, just check what fits your needs and you will have a good insight on your HRV. And if you're more advanced, you can try kind of nervous vagus stimulation devices. So these are electrical stimulation devices that will trigger your vagal nerve on superficial localizations of the nerve. For example, here on your neck, you can have access here to the vagal nerve. And if you do the stimulation right, you have a chance to enhance your vagal tonus. Another one is neurofeedback. With neurofeedback, you can also have an influence on the circulation of the blood in your brain. You can enhance your focus. You can increase your recovery by doing, for example, meditation or breath work with the devices, but that's a topic for another podcast. So that's it for today. That's a wrap for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening and I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe either here on YouTube or on our different podcast channels, including Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Stay healthy.